Hi, I'm Jennifer De Paso, and this is the Fabricant Way. Today we're in Governor's Island, a very special location, visiting Zito. He's a portrait painter, and he's here because he's getting ready for his art fair that he and his nonprofit organizes every year. So let's see what he has for us, and I'm gonna get a portrait painted, first time ever. Hey,
Hi,
how are you?
I'm good. Nice to see you.
Thank you for having us here.
My pleasure. Come on in.
Thanks. Hey, Anthony.
Hi.
Really excited to be here in Governor's Island. Thank you for having us in this very special place. For those that are not familiar with your work, you are a portrait painter, and I just wonder if you could just share with us how you became the portrait painter you're today.
Both of my parents are artists, and I was raised around art my whole life. So I think when other kids went to Disneyland, we went to the Met. You know, it was like that. Bedtime reading was like art books, Picasso and Rembrandt, and just, you know, we learned all about the old masters before we were, 2 feet tall. My father was a painter and really my best teacher. In his studio, I would have my little easel set up next to his, and really was kind of an amazing thing looking back. I always painted portraits, I always drew portraits. That's always what interests me, faces intrigue me. I knew this older fella, John Vaccaro, who was kind of a famous theater director from the 60s. He did Theater for the Ridiculous. He knew everybody. He knew Zappa and Bowie and just all the people that you wish you knew. And he told me about how they used to have this giant building in Soho that Zappa owned it, and he was just renting out floors to anyone for like a couple $100 a month, He and I became friends, and I needed a place to work, so he gave me a space that I could use for a little while next to the Mars Bar. And that just went bad really quickly. And then I moved to a squat, which was upstairs from the Mars Bar. There used to be this old community center called Quando, and it was amazing. Inside there was a friend of mine who lived there. He was a Kung Fu master and a drunk, and he had a Kung Fu school there. And there was this, just like, he had an apartment on the side, he had an auditorium and a gymnasium, and it was all in worse shape than this, but it was just stunning and massive and dirty, filthy, you know. I moved all my stuff up into there from that point. And then he, after having been in court for 12 years over the space, lost his space as well. I had been looking in the Village Voice for a storefront, and I saw this one on Ludlow Street, and it was, I forget what it was, like $1,700. And I'm like, oh, you know, I wish, that's too much money. Then 9/11 happened, and I started to watch that same ad, and the rent just was going bloop, bloop, bloop. Every week it was going lower, and it got down to $13.25, and I said, that's it, and I'm gonna do it. I borrowed a little bit of money, and somehow talked the landlord into letting me open a business there, having not had a business before. He was wanting all this sort of backup, and I didn't have it. But I rented the space January 1st, 2002, when everyone else was leaving New York. So I rented the place on Ludlow then and ran it for about 5.5 years. And it was like a little clubhouse. I mean, I always had crazy parties there, and people just stopped by all the time. I met a lot of really cool people there. I met Jim Jarmusch when I was doing my stint there, and did a few paintings for his movies. And that was like a huge honor for me, especially because my Lee Marvin painting is in between Meg and Jack White. And I mean, what else do you have to say about that? I was blown away. Great company to be in. And I used to divide the room in half and have my art on one side and then a guest artist every month, and do an opening, and have musicians and burlesque girls and just everything. It was phenomenal. But it was really kind of being there, watching the neighborhood just kind of disappear around me. They were just tearing down sections of city blocks and putting up high-rises. And so the culture that I was a part of for like the past 10, 15 years was just really just disappearing, just going down the drain. But I held it down for a good bit of time, and then I had the biggest blowout party ever. When I heard that I was getting evicted, I just said, that's it. I'm gonna have, on the last day of my tenancy there, I'm just gonna have the sickest party ever. And it was wild. It was costumes required. It was out in the street. We had the fire trucks there 3 times and the cops there 3 times. And that's how you know you're having fun. So I miss that space a bit, but you know, you gotta roll with whatever happens, especially in New York. I'm kind of a gypsy when I'm in New York now. I have my truck and my paints are in my truck, and I set up wherever, you know, whether it's out here in a restaurant, in the East Village, in a park, pretty much anywhere. Forehead started as 4 artists, 4 painters getting together and just trying to create opportunities to exhibit. Governor's Island was mentioned by one of our founding partners. We went to a city hall meeting where they were talking about Governor's Island. You know, this was empty out here. No one knew it even existed except the military. And they were looking to do something with it. We went to that meeting and we presented ourselves as, we're completely lying, but we're like, oh, we're an arts group and we'd love to do something on the island. And to our amazement, they said, yeah, submit a proposal. And so we did, and to our continued amazement, they accepted our proposal to do an art exhibit in one of the houses. The first building they gave us was on the other side of the island, and it was 52 rooms. We really had like maybe a month to put together this thing. So we just called a bunch of our friends who are artists, and we filled the place with art, and it was great. So in our second year, they gave us bigger buildings. We had 100 rooms. So that's when we started to say 100 artists in 100 rooms. Basically, the way we run it is we look through all the work very carefully that's submitted to us, and we select what we think are the real rock star artists. So it's about 100 solo shows all together in one massive exhibition.
One question that I ask everyone is, why do we need Antony Zito in our lives?
I don't know, I think it's really important to have art in your life, and I think it's often really overlooked. It's always the thing that gets slashed when the budget's being cut, art and music and all this sort of useless sort of luxury items. I think without that, there's no culture. And then what do you have left? You have just your Chase Bank existence, your beige sort of cubicle world. I remember standing in my dad's studio with my little easel next to his and looking at a blank canvas and being like, I can't think of what to paint. And he said something that always stuck with me. He said, think with the brush. And if you think about that and apply it to all aspects of life, it's like just get in there and do something, You can fix it if you get it wrong, but don't sit around thinking about it.